Welcome to Baseball Money is Fake, fantasy baseball podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I am Blake Meyer from Fantasy Pros, and as always, I am joined by my man Ryan Gilbert from Odyssey Sports and SGPN. How you doing on this beautiful Friday, Ryan?
I'm doing good. It's a weekend. We got baseball back. We got Bryce Harper could play first base as soon as this weekend. We got Rojas called up. It's a good time to be a baseball fan. Got the second half to kick off here. It should be an exciting few weeks leading up to the trade deadline too.
Dude, I'm so ready for Bryce Harper to play first base, especially since I traded for him in the SGPN League, the Dynasty League. I was a little nervous with him getting hit on the elbow. Only a little nervous. I wasn't like overly nervous, but I was still a little nervous. But seeing that he's in the lineup today and they're talking about working him in at first base now, finally, dude, get him out of having just DH eligibility for the love of God. And I mean, first base could use it. There's no Rhys Hoskins. Jose Abreu sucks. So, I mean, there's room in that top 10 for Bryce Harper to slide in there. But I mean, we're talking second half strategies today. I love episodes like this because me and Ryan kind of get to share more of our insight that we don't normally talk about on here. Just kind of some behind or inside baseball money is fake knowledge. But I mean, I'm trying to think of how I want to break this down. I guess first things first, when it comes to second halves, Ryan, do you try and go into that second half? I have a hard time calling it the second half because we're already like games wise, we're over the halfway point.
It's the second half though. The All-Star break splits it up. That's what people call it.
All right. Do you come out of the All-Star break with kind of a list of guys that you have your eye on that you think are going to have success in the second half, or do you kind of just go with the flow out of the All-Star break and see how things shake out in like that first week?
Yeah, more so the latter, more so just like, not necessarily looking at specific guys, but looking at your team and looking at, what do you need? Like, what position do you need? What do you need to be targeting? Also, something like I'm looking at is saves. Like, saves is something that I have punted in some of my leagues here. And like, when you're in the playoffs, you can't punt a category. So when your trade line's coming up, try to get a closer or two from one of those fringe teams that's not quite in the playoff picture that has like one or two closers that's going to just drop them anyway. So throw them like a depth outfielder for a closer, shore up the save position there. Same thing with holds too, like and even like stolen bases. Like if you're someone that doesn't really value steals, maybe look at some people in the second half, either via trade or free agency that you can get some good speed from, because you don't want to have categories that you're going into your playoff matchups knowing you're going to lose. You can't, because if your stars have a bad week, then you can't like get those few extra categories to steal a matchup. So that's what makes the playoffs so great, is you can have a great regular season and it all comes crashing down in the playoffs. So you have to build for both.
Yeah, and I think this is a great time. Man, that was a really good point. I think this is a great time to kind of change up your waiver wire strategy a little bit to pinpoint some of those categories. Because I think in the first half, you spend a lot of time just trying to figure out, like, okay, who's the best guy on the waiver wire that I can just add to my team? Like, who's just the best overall person that I can add? But when you get into this second half, this is fucking crunch time. Like this is it right here. Like it's a little early to call it the playoff push, but it's the playoff push in fantasy baseball. And you really do need to shore up those kind of outlier categories for you that you may have neglected in the first half because they weren't quite as important. But like you said, when you get to the playoffs, or if you make it to the championship round, if you're just outright punting on a category in a categories league, you're screwed. Like, you can't just randomly make that up on like September 20th. You're not going to add 14 weekly steals to your team all of a sudden to try and shore that up. That's not going to work. And even in the saves department, I have noticed as you guys know, I do a lot of points leagues. I love me some points leagues. In years past, the elite closers are always good in a points league because, I mean, they're going to save 40 games. That plays. But even some of like the next tier down closers have become very fantasy relevant in points leagues with just how much of a dumpster fire the pitcher position has been. Some of those higher end but not great closers have become very relevant. Like, I mean, he got hurt in the All-Star game, but Jordan Romano, in my points leagues, he's very viable this year. Like, if you want to put Jordan Romano in there instead of trying to figure out a streamer for each week, I have somebody that's doing that in my home league, and it is going very well. He went the weird strategy of drafting 4 closers on his team, and I mean, he has one of the best scoring pitching rotations in our league, which is if you told me you were going to do that coming into the year, I would have told you were fucking nuts. But it's working, and it's because guys like Corbin Burns have struggled. Alek Manoah has struggled. Sandy Alcantara has struggled. Shane McClanahan has been hurt. Like, a lot of these guys that you thought you could count on, you can't really count on up to this point. And so, yeah, just picking the waiver wire for those kind of specialty positions and players that you may not have looked at before becomes very important.
Yeah, and like in my one league, saves plus holds is the category. So there's plenty of guys available that in that category. So I'm just not. I haven't touched anyone. My relief pitcher spots are empty. I have like 3 or 4 different streaming spots that I just stream through for the week to try to get wins, try to get strikeouts. That's 2 categories you can try to win rather than just having those relievers. And come closer to playoff time, I'm going to cut 2 or 3 streaming spots, pick up a few save hold guys, and probably win those matchups in the playoffs, hopefully. So yeah, that's a thing to look at. Another thing to look at is like their actual team. What's going to happen? Like these younger pitchers, Grayson Rodriguez, someone like him, Josiah Gray, other young pitchers that might get shut down. Like they might stop pitching by the time fantasy baseball playoffs roll around. Also, and talking about closers, closers that might get dealt. Closers that could go from being an elite closer on a middling team to a great setup man, and that it's great for the team acquiring him, but it's not good for you as a fantasy manager counting on that guy to get saves. So that's something to look out for with the trade deadline coming up. Definitely stay abreast of that and get any handcuffs you possibly can, any setup men for teams that might be looking to trade their closers. Off the top of my head, all I can think of is I think I've seen Bednar in Pittsburgh is possibly in rumors, but I'm sure there's going to be other ones coming up. We'll keep you guys abreast of that.
Yeah, I mean, just throwing speculative stuff out there. The Mariners seem to be trending more towards buyers right now, and if that happens, it's likely that one of their top tier relievers is going to have to get dealt. And I'm going to tell you right now, Paul Sewald is good enough to be a closer on pretty much every team in baseball. Andres Munoz is good enough to be a closer on almost every team in baseball. My boy Matt Brash is probably good enough to be a closer on any team in baseball. So guys like that go from kind of obscurity a little bit to all of a sudden they can be a prominent closer in a good lineup, and they become very fantasy relevant. And let's be honest, you're not rostering Matt Brash in any leagues right now. For the most part. Like, I say that, and there's gonna be guys in like a 15-team, 40-man roster.
I thought about picking him up in a 12-team league to get some ratios, and he could pick up like a rogue win here and there.
That's good. Rogue win, and the strikeout stuff is disgusting. Yeah. But I mean, outside of like little niche things like that, he all of a sudden becomes really good. And I keep trying to find a way to, like, the Mariners are in talks apparently with the Cardinals. Like they have some trade rumblings going on between us and the Cardinals. The rumor is the Mariners either want like Brendan Donovan or Nolan Gorman, who everybody knows I just fucking love me some Nolan Gorman. Oh my fucking God. I'm going to edit that one out. But the talks are trading for him, and they like Logan Gilbert. So it's likely going to take like a Logan Gilbert plus somebody else is probably a reliever. And if Matt Brash goes to the Cardinals, he's not going to be their closer. But I don't really know where I was going with this. I just wanted to talk Mariners trade stuff.
Yeah, like I don't those trades you're talking about. I don't know if trades like that happen during the season. Like it's in people talking about like, oh, what's a fair trade package for Ohtani? What's a fair trade package for anybody? It's like, unless it's like a rental, you give a few prospects for. Like it just depends on what the team wants back. So yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces there. Also, a lot of moving pieces with the Circa Sports contest. We're brought to you by Circa Sports. Circa Millions and Circa Survivor are back. There's $14 million in guaranteed prizes up for grabs. Circa Millions is 5 NFL picks against the spread each week, or Circa Survivor, classic Survivor contest. Pick a different winner and move on. You do have to enter in Las Vegas, but you can play from anywhere during the season. The Sports Gambling Podcast, guys, will be out there the last weekend in August. So go to circusports.com for all the details. That's circusports.com.
All right. So, Professor, I would say drop Wade for Torkelson is probably who I would say. I'm okay dropping Wade for Torkelson. I like Votto, but I think Wade and Votto are pretty similar, but I do like Torkelson the most of those three. So, yeah, if you drop Wade for Torkelson, I am down for that. And since we were talking about trades there for a minute, I got to shout out Matthew Hennings on Twitter, who, like, right before we recorded this, he sent me a message that said his fantasy trade deadline is in an hour. And he had a question. It says, I have Jonathan India locked up cheap for the next 2 years. He was offered Manny Machado straight up, who would be a rental. He would only have him until the end of this year. And he said he should be a playoff bound, but the two teams in front of him in the standings made moves to improve. I have to preface this by saying, Matthew, I absolutely love your league type. It is incredible. It's a league that has been going for 20 years. I love to hear about these leagues that are decades old, because for the longest time, fantasy baseball is kind of the redheaded stepchild. Nobody paid attention to fantasy baseball. So if you've been playing in a league since 2001, good on you, dude. It is a 15-team league that is a mix between like a keeper league, and they have like drafting and auctions, and they like rent a house in the off season to do live like auctions for players that have come available that their keeper contracts ran out, because I guess the contracts run out every couple years, and then they're kind of open to everybody with the auction style. It sounds incredible. But Ryan, if you were in his position, would you rather have for the rest of the year, would you rather have Jonathan India with 2 years left on his keeper contract, or Manny Machado that you only get for the rest of this season?
I think if you're on the fringe, not sure if you're going to even make the playoffs, or like if this is going to put you over the top, I think you have to keep India. The Reds up and coming. He's going to be in the middle of that lineup for at least the next 2 years during his contract there, with De La Cruz, with Encarnacion Strand coming up. So yeah, I think, if you were like one piece away and you wanted to make that trade and needed a third baseman pretty badly, maybe go for it. But I think, at that point, I would stick with India. Do you know what he ended up doing? Has his trade deadline hit yet?
I think his trade deadline is up. I'll have to message him after the show. I think it's up. I told him that I would do the same thing you just said. I said, I think as good as Manny Machado is, and he really is rounding into form, Machado is the overall better player. But I told him India plays at a much thinner position, and he's one of the top options at a thinner position. So to have that plus 2 years of control on top of that, I think works out better in the long run for him than getting the rental in Machado. And I actually think Jonathan India is going to have a big second half. He's one of my favorite second half players this year. And so I think the production, I don't think it's going to be that crazy different between the two of them. And India has the speed factor too, which helps. But if you don't mind, I got to tell you some of this dude's team real quick, because it is absurd. Catcher Wilson Contreras, and then he's got Pete Alonso, Jonathan India, Max Muncy, Nico Horner, Christopher Morel, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, and Christian Walker to round out his starting lineup.
Did he just want a complete Padre stack there with Machado to go with Tatis and Soto?
He might just fully stack it out. On the bench, he's got Teoscar Hernandez, Jeremy Pena, Bryson Stott, and he's got Soderstrom in his minor spot, which I love. And then for pitching, Jose Barrios, Shane Bieber, Joe Ryan, Justin Steele, who we love on the show, Carlos Estevez, Kenley Jansen, and he's got Bryce Miller and Brandon Woodruff on the IL, who will both be back soon. Also, Matthew, your team is stacked, my boy.
That's a great team right there. Yeah.
I saw Rock India.
I saw Bryce Miller coming back. I think the latter half of the Mariners rotation, so like probably early next week.
Yeah, which will be really good, especially since, like you talked about, kind of shoring up your rotation a little bit because some of these younger guys, you don't know what's going to happen to them later on in the year. Brian Wu is a prime example of that. We love him around these parts. I did a good write-up on him, like right after he got called up, essentially over at our Substack, fakebaseball.substack.com. Make sure you guys go check that out. We do have that second half home run contest that is running until Monday. All you got to do is subscribe, even the free subscription makes you eligible. And our latest post on there is about the contest. It's got a link in there. Go fill that out. But Brian Wu has pitched like 77 innings or something so far this year. And the Mariners are talking about him having like 115, maybe 120 innings cap, which means Brian Wu's probably got 6 more starts, 7 maybe, depending on how long they go. And then they're not like winding him down into like a bullpen role. He's hitting the 115, 120, and he's shut down for the year. And so as good as he is right now, he almost becomes a better trade target because you're going to need to fill in that spot, like trade away.
Okay, yes, yes,
yeah, trade away. Unless you're in like a dynasty league, like just keep him because he'll be excellent for next year. He also has been rumored to be in that Cardinals trade. There's rumors that he might be somebody the Cardinals are targeting. But yeah, so like that is a position in your lineup that at some point is just going to become a flat 0 for the rest of the year. Like he's going to contribute nothing after he gets shut down. And then you are going to scramble in like mid-August trying to figure out who the hell can I pick up to try and fill in. So taking advantage of that now, whether that be trading him away to somebody else or just preemptively picking up somebody early, like right now that's pretty widely available, is probably your best bet moving forward. Are you, I love trade talk, man. Are you the kind of person that like tries to sneak a trade in right before the trade deadline to kind of shore up your spot for the playoffs, or are you kind of a let it ride?
Absolutely. I feel like that's like the only time that people in one of my leagues are like very active with trades. So yeah, that's especially in the keeper league, that because our trade deadline I think is in August. So it's like by that point if you're making the playoffs, if you're going for it or not. So you can if you're buying, you can go to a seller and try to vice versa. Yeah, I think trading is huge in fantasy baseball and should be done more often. I was very excited to see your trade with Matt in our league. I think there's another 1-for-1 swap that went down today. Bader for somebody.
Bader for Horner.
Bader for Horner. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Good, decent swap there.
Yeah.
But switching gears here a little bit. So just saw an hour ago, Trey Cabbage, a prospect for the Los Angeles Angels, left-handed hitting power hitter, was 26 years old, was called up. He is not in the ESPN or Yahoo player pool, but he's been killing the ball so far at AAA. 81 games. He has 23 home runs, hitting 287. Last year at AA in 30 games, he had 10 home runs, hitting 327. OPS over 1. Sorry, hitting 287 this year, but yeah, it's still good. I imagine he'll get a good crack in that lineup with Trout out. I think Drury's still out. I think Rendon might be back. But yeah, is he someone? Do you think he could be like a Joey Meneses type? I'm not sure if you had even heard of him before now.
I'm gonna be honest, hadn't heard of him before now, but Joey Meneses type, I don't know, just because I said I've never heard of him, but I saw the stats that I wanted to see. I don't know if I can call him a Joey Meneses type. I like the power speed combo that he has, but he is a big strikeout guy, which he has a strikeout rate in the minors very reminiscent to Tyler Soderstrom, who we talked about yesterday for the Oakland Athletics. Very similar, but he has a very high line drive rate. His line drive rate this year, 24%. Love to see that. Last year in AA, 31%. 2021 in AA, 26%. And if you guys have been listening to the show, you know that one of my favorite things to key in on for these prospects when they get called up is line drive rate. A high line drive rate leads to a higher BABIP, which leads to a higher batting average. Line drive rate is something that does translate from the minor league level to the major league level. Power doesn't always translate. Speed translates a little bit, but line drive rate is key. If they can't hit line drives in the minors, they're not going to magically show up at a major league lineup and start hitting a 30% line drive rate. So getting a guy like this who's got speed, who's got some pop and a high line drive rate, I think he is worth a look in like 12-team or deeper leagues because there could be some good value there.
Yeah, I think that he's someone that definitely could be picked up in deeper leagues, or if you're just looking for a little bit of power, because that seems like what he's gonna bring. I think we're just called up today, so he's not in the lineup tonight, but hopefully we'll see where he's batting over the weekend, and we can revisit it next week. We are also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania 4 is here, and Underdog Fantasy is giving away $15 million in prizes. Underdog Pick'em is also a great way to get down on your favorite MLB and NFL season player props. So many ways to win over on Underdog, and Underdog is available in so many states. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN.
Okay, so somebody that I want to talk about before we go further too is Clayton Kershaw. There was some news that came out. He went on the IL on July 3rd with a shoulder issue. He just got a cortisone shot in that shoulder and got told that he needs to just sit back and let it heal. So he is weeks away. They're thinking mid to late August is when he may be back. That worries me a little bit. Because just like in an oblique injury with a hitter worries me because it kind of zaps their power, getting a cortisone shot in the shoulder for a pitcher is not ideal. Prime example, Kyle Wright won 21 games last year for the Atlanta Braves, came into spring training, shoulder was a little weak, so they gave him a cortisone shot because he was having some shoulder issues, and Kyle Wright hasn't done a damn thing this year. Not saying that Clayton Kershaw is not going to do anything going forward. This is just kind of this is very Clayton Kershaw-esque, getting hurt at some point in the year and spending an extended period of time on the injured list. But this one does actually worry me because I don't like cortisone shots in the shoulder for a pitcher, especially in the middle of the year. Do you have Kershaw at all, or how would you be handling Kershaw going forward?
Yeah, I don't have Kershaw. I'm seeing today, a few hours ago, Kershaw said he doesn't hurt when he throws, but the doctor recommended more rest. I think this is another situation like we talked about with Judge, where the Dodgers, I mean, they know they're making the playoffs. So they're 2.5 games up in the division, 2.5 games up in the wild card. Barring a collapse, they're looking for the postseason. And that's what Kershaw wants. Kershaw wants to make sure he pitches in the postseason. So I think with a pitcher, they're going to play it safer than the Yankees will with Judge, or like the Angels will with Trout or something like that. But yeah, if I had Kershaw, I would probably be trying to move him, unless I was in a position where I'm in a playoff spot and maybe I want him for the fantasy baseball playoffs, because he's been fantastic when he's pitched this season. He had 5 straight quality starts. He had 9 strikeout games. He was 4-2 this season. He has 105 strikeouts in 95 innings. Like he is Clayton Kershaw when he's pitching. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of you don't know how much he's going to be pitching. So I would try to move him. Or on the flip side, if you're in first place, if you're locked up and you just want possibly a little bit of a boost for the playoffs, see if you can get him cheap. But I would probably be selling Kershaw right now, just because I think the Dodgers are focusing on the actual playoffs.
I completely agree with that. And this actually leads me into this is a big moment for us. You're unaware of it. It's not really like a huge moment, but so we started this show at the beginning of September last season. I think it was like September 8th. I don't remember how I remember that, but it was like September 8th. And one of the first things that we talked about on this show was, how do you handle injuries at the end of a fantasy season going into the playoffs? And so I would like to discuss with you, Ryan, in this new season, for the first time, we're going to cover something that we covered last season that is not a player. at this point in the season, at the very beginning of the second half, does your strategy with dealing with injured players, like say like a Tyro Estrada who's going to be out 6 weeks, somebody who's been very fantasy relevant this year, at this point, are you still finding any way possible to get that person on the injured list, or do you start to get more and more kind of trigger happy with might have to cut bait and bring somebody else in because he's going to miss so much time with the playoffs coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a case by case basis, but if your IL spots are filled, if you don't have an IL spot in your league, and you have someone like an Estrada, like a Jazz Chisholm, like a O'Neal Cruz, even like how much longer do you want to hold on to those guys? I feel like give it till the end of July and get those updates. I mean, definitely take it case by case where you are in your standings, where you need to be, where you're looking to be. But yeah, I'm not gonna panic too much yet. I still think there's what, probably 6 or 7 weeks left in the regular season, so you have some time to maneuver there. So hopefully you have an IL spot, but if not, you know what, maybe try to move him before you cut bait. But there are certain players that, you know, if they're hurt, probably just cut bait on. I think like Brandon Drury, someone like that, just you
Mm-hmm.
can probably cut. But yeah, Estrada has been really good and does have that second base, shortstop, outfield eligibility. So case by case basis, but I do lean more now to cutting bait. You know, wait a week or two. It depends how long they're out, but yeah, I am more open to cutting bait now.
Yeah, I think if you're already like a playoff team, because I mean, in my home league, the guy that's in first place, it's not me, unfortunately. The guy that's in first place is like, I think he's about to be 10-1. He's already locked up a playoff spot. Like, if that's you listening to this and you're in that situation, you have a little more leeway with some of these injured players that are not helping your team at all right now. Like, you don't need to hold Tyro Estrada at this point. Like, you can, like, you know what? Let me get somebody else that's going to help me to stay locked in for this first place spot.
But no,
But if you're
I think the opposite of that. If you're in first
really,
place and you know you have a playoff spot locked up, you can hold those guys on your roster if you think they're going to be valuable in September.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, because
That's true. Because yeah, if you're
if you need to work your way up, then yeah, cut bait on those guys and get someone that can help you win these next 4 to 6 weeks while that guy's out.
that is true. You got me on that one. That's true.
that,
And you know what the worst part
that's
is?
the
Like,
way
I
I look at
realized
it.
it as I was saying it. But yeah, if you're in first place, yeah, you have the more leeway. If you're completely out of the playoffs at this point, hold him if you want. Like, he might come back. But if you're still fighting for a playoff, if you're one of those middle of the road teams, guys like Tyro Estrada are somebody that you're going to need to help you make that playoff push when he comes back. So you have to be more locked into finding a way to keep them on your roster going forward. I'm just using Tyro Estrada as an example because he's somebody that I just had to think about this with yesterday when I was going over my roster preparing for games to happen today. I have Tyro Estrada in my home league, kept him. I'm like 9-2, doing well for myself. So I found a way to I didn't even put him on the IL because all my IL spots are taken. I just kept him on the bench because it's a weekly points league and I can afford to just have a guy that's hurt on my bench. I'm cool with it. But there are other examples of that. Like you mentioned, O'Neal Cruz. Let's be honest. If you've held O'Neal Cruz this long, you might as well just keep holding him. There's no reason to just all of a sudden now, like 3-4 weeks before he starts making his way back, there's no reason now to get rid of him. And I just want to point out, I'm so ready for him to come back. I'm not even a fucking Pirates fan or any of that. I just want a game that has O'Neal Cruz versus Ellie De La Cruz because they're in the same division. They're going to play each other. It's going to be electric. Like I will watch every one of those games, and I don't want to say I have nothing riding on those because I do have a pretty decent sized bet on the Reds to win the division. So I have been watching a lot more Reds games lately, but going forward, just be mindful of how long a player is going to be out when they're injured and how badly do you need to wait on them. If you don't need to wait on them, hold on to them. But we are reaching the point of the season where it starts to become more okay to drop some of these guys in favor of somebody that's actually going to contribute to your team.
Yeah, absolutely. I have Cruz in my keeper league, so I am hoping he gets healthy and I can trade him for a piece to secure a championship this year. So I'm excited for him to come back as well.
But outside of that, let's get into a couple streaming options for the weekend because baseball is back, baby. And if you're listening to this, it's probably Saturday. Shout out to the Friday listeners, but it's probably Saturday. So we got a couple Saturday and Sunday streaming options for you guys. Ryan has been killing it with his deep league streamer write-ups that he has been doing over on our Substack, fakebaseball.substack.com, if you want to check those out. So Ryan, who you got your eye on for Saturday?
Yeah, people have been loving those, looking at those like 10%, 5% rostered guys. I got one 6% rostered in Yahoo, Steven Matz for the Cardinals going against the Nationals at home. Matz has been very up and down this season, but his last start in Chicago against the White Sox, no runs, 5 1/3 innings. He had 9 strikeouts there. So Nationals are not good. I think the Cardinals aren't good either, but Steven Matz, in the deepest of leagues, he should be available, and he has capability of putting up, some good strikeout numbers. I think he could possibly get you a quality start. Maybe, maybe not quite get that far, but, possibly get you a win as well because the Cardinals are better than the Nationals, even though they are kind of disappointing. So that's my deep league guy. And I also don't hate Jake Irvin for the Nationals against the Cardinals there. He's 2% rostered. I think I wrote about him on one of my other things on the Substack. He's been very solid, hasn't really blown up in his past 5 starts. So yeah, I think both of those guys are great options for deep leagues.
I love those. I'm a big Steven Matz fan, which is weird. I loved him back in the Mets days, and it's just kind of carried over to the Cardinals. But somebody that I'm keyed in on for Saturday is going to be my boy Ranger Suarez for your Philadelphia Phillies. I seem to mention him a lot. I know he has struggled in his last 2 starts against Miami and the Nationals, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't really care. He's playing against San Diego, and they have on paper a good lineup, but San Diego hasn't been that great of a team this year. They are very strikeout prone, and you can get to them. If you get to them early, they kind of get in their own head a little bit, and they can struggle over the course of a year. And Suarez is the guy that you really only need him to go out there and put up a quality start for you, and he can strike out 6 or 7. He's got a great sinker, good curveball, and he mixes in a good fastball and some other pitches in there too. So he's got the stuff to keep San Diego on their toes, and I think he makes it an excellent option for Saturday.
Yeah, and that's a doubleheader there. So I could see that's game 2, I believe he's starting. So you could see maybe some of the Padres stars taking a seat there against the lefty in the second game. But yeah, Suarez has definitely been good there. Also want to note on Steven Matz, he was in the bullpen for a while before making that last start. He was in the bullpen from May 29th to July 5th, and he was solid. He had a 2.81 ERA in 16 innings. So he kind of settled down a bit, and this is a good chance for him to get back on track against Washington.
Yeah, who you got for Sunday?
I didn't look ahead for Sunday, but one more for Saturday. I feel like I mentioned him a lot is Kyle Gibson of the Orioles. He's been better than not in most of his starts. He did have 2 bad starts recently against the Reds and your Mariners, but 3 quality starts in his last 6 games. His last start, 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, and a win against the Twins. Going against the Fish there in Baltimore. So hopefully he can get a win at home with some strikeouts. He's rostered in 43% of leagues, so he may not be available in your league.
I've got one for you guys for Sunday. I see when we do these streaming option ones, I seem to give a lot of the same guys because they always seem to be pitching the next day after we record these episodes. The next guy's name would be Ben Lively. You've probably heard me say his name before. Crazy, right? He's going against Milwaukee. They're fighting for the division lead right now. The Reds have a little bit of a leg up on Milwaukee, but I mean, in Lively's last game out, it was against Milwaukee. He went 5 2/3, gave up 1 run, struck out 5. And he faced him earlier in the year too. He went 7 innings, gave up 5 runs. That one wasn't so great, but you love to see 7 innings. But he's a guy. He's got the excellent pitch mix. He's got a good fastball. He's got an incredible slider, and he's a guy that throws the sinker up in the zone, which you don't seem to see a lot outside of when you play MLB The Show. That's everybody's favorite pitch. At least it was last year.
Yeah.
The 102-mile-an-hour sinker with outlier at the top of the zone, which gave me nightmares. But yeah, he has a good pitch mix, and the Reds are known to just let their starters go. Like, you go throw 100, 110 pitches. Even like I said, in the one game, he gave up 5 runs in 7 innings. He gave up 5 runs early, and they still let him go 7 innings. So he's going to get you the innings. And I honestly think this is I'm going to put it out there because I've been doing pretty good at this. I'm saying Lively's going 7 innings, giving up 2 runs, and he's going to strike out 7 Milwaukee Brewers. He's going to walk a couple, maybe 2 or 3 walks in there, but he's going to get you a quality start. Going to get you a handful of strikeouts, what you're looking for. I can't promise a win. I hope they win. I'm not going to promise that, but I think he's for sure going to get you a quality start on Sunday. And that'd be a good way to end your fantasy week.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that 102 mile per hour sinker, because I did look ahead to Sunday. Bobby Miller is starting against the Mets. He's rostered in 58% of leagues, but he's been shaky recently, so he might be available in your league. Then just run him down. Jack Flaherty versus Josiah Gray. I think that's a good matchup there for both sides. I mean, you can pick up either of them. They've both been solid. And then Seth Lugo against the Phillies. I think Seth Lugo has been incredible as a starter this year for the Padres. So I think he's been very overlooked. He's only rostered in a third of Yahoo leagues, so I think he'd probably be the main guy that I would say to pick up for Sunday.
Dude, love me some Seth Lugo. He has been sneaky good this year. And one more thing I want to highlight before we get out of here. I did do my weekly planner article for Fantasy Pros. I wrote it late last night as I slaved away at my computer when everybody in the house was asleep but me, and I should have been sleeping. I got it all written up for next week. Me and Ryan will dive deeper into that probably in our next episode on Sunday or Monday. But I need to tell you guys this right now. The only Dodgers players that I like for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. Outside of that, I cannot confidently say that you should be starting any of the others. Max Muncy scares me. David Peralta scares me. James Outman scares me. Everybody scares me because they are facing the New York not-so-good Mets. But they're going up against Justin Verlander, Kodai Senga, and Max Scherzer in back-to-back-to-back games. And the last thing you really want to be doing when you're starting people at the this is the end of some people's weeks or the beginning of others, depending on what format you're in. In ESPN leagues, this is the end of week 14. The last thing you want to be doing is trying to start guys that are facing back-to-back-to-back pitchers that are on a roll like that, because that could really do some damage to your lineup and your chances to win. So if you can look elsewhere for some production this weekend outside of the Dodgers, I would, just because that is a really tough matchup, and you don't see very often teams having to face like 3 pitchers like that over the weekend, back-to-back-to-back. So be wary of Dodgers for this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good call out there. I mean, you might want to you look at Dodgers players like, let's just start the Dodgers players. But yeah, you got to look at pitching matchups when you're putting your lineup together, no matter what. And that's a good call out there.
Yeah, and another good call out would be for you guys to go follow us over again at the Substack, fakebaseball.substack.com. If you subscribe over there, whether it's a free or a paid subscription, you only got to subscribe paid if you love the work that we're doing for you guys. It kind of helps us out to continue what we're doing. Go check that out. We got a contest. You'll win a free paid subscription to the Substack. Get all the extra little juicy content. Plus, you'll win a 2022 Topps Chrome Gilded Rose Kevin Gossman auto out of 25 from my baseball card collection. It'll be sent straight to you. And also make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at Fake Baseball, Twitch and YouTube at Fake Baseball Money. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you love what you hear from us, that also goes a long way to helping us continue to be able to do that. And you can catch me on Twitter at Buhlockaye, BUHHLOCKAYE.
And you can follow me on Twitter at rgilbertsop.
We'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.